Okay, Bobby, thanks for coming today.
Yep.
Today's about doing a little bit of extra training on site that your employees organise. So I can see here that you've previously done Cert 2, building construction. So you have some knowledge and some skills that you've already developed. Today is more about just extending those a little bit further and being a little bit more specific on what we're going to do. And basically today is going to be about internal skirting board scribes.
Yep.
The process of how we do it, different profile skirts, so that you can get a really good join. And it looks like you're going to be doing some of that sometime soon in this project. So, you know, the training will be very current and very relevant. So, okay, so what we'll do here is we'll just have a look at what today's training is all about. As I've mentioned, it's going to be about doing some scribes on some skirting. The way this will work will be, we'll work through this documentation at the moment. We'll go out to the drop saw. I'll give you a practical demonstration, and then I'll get you to replicate what I've done. We'll come back in here into the room, we'll cut the scribes and we'll check them to make sure that your learning is developing. If you've got any questions on the way through, just ask, and we'll go from there. So we've got, if you have a look under there, we've got a safe work method statement here, which is a condition of the employer allowing us to conduct this training today. Point one there is to complete the induction, which we've both done prior to today's session. This safe work method statement here, we'll both sign that as well before we proceed into any work. We need to observe the site signs that are on the gate out the front, and they're also part of the induction procedure as well. So there's nothing new there. That's stuff that we've already undertaken. We will be using some electrical equipment. The drop saw is electrical, so you'll notice out there that it's got some tags on it.
Yep.
They're just safety tags to say that the tool has been tested, that it is safe to use. PPE for today's task, probably the main one would be our hearing protection. And just when we're using the saw, I'll explain to you the do's and don'ts while we're out there. I can see that if you've done your Cert 2, and it looks like you've done a little bit of work up here as well, that you're probably familiar with the drop saw and how it works anyway. So we'll have a look at what today is all about, the training today. So the task, we're going to do two examples. We're going to do a colonial profile skirt, and we're going to do a splayed skirt as well. The procedure we're going to use for both of them is exactly the same.
Yep.
So it's all about just understanding what the task is. So we're going to break it down into a few parts. We need to know what the materials are. So I've got those in the shed in the saw. Identify the tools, and then we just follow the steps there that are on your checklist and mine, how we go about doing it. Always be mindful of the safety element as well. So we'll go out to the shed now, and we'll do some cutting. Okay, Bob, what we've got here, mate, is two different type profile skirts. So colonial, so it's got all of the bends and twists in it.
Yep.
And we've got this one here, which is a splay. So it's pretty flat. It splays at the top.
Yep.
So we need to make, if we just do a square cut, you can see that it's not going to align.
Yep.
More pronounced on this one. So we're creating that internal corner, so you can see there.
Yep.
We need to make that work.
Sure.
Join up. So it's called an internal scribe. So I'm going to show you how to cut the first part on the saw first.
Yep.
I'll get you to do the same, and then we'll go back into the main room, and we'll actually do the scribe cuts, and we'll check them. Okay, so the first thing we need is we need to work out which way the saw needs to be cut. So if you have a look at the two skirts here, you can see that it needs to come across on that angle there.
Yeah, sure.
The angle's 90 degrees, so half of that's 45. So the drop saw, we need to swing it around to 45, and you'll see that you'll hear it click in on the 45s. And when we're cutting with the saw, it's important that that is flat against the fence at the back.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the first part of the square cut. Yep. So what we'll do exactly the same with the colonial while the saw's set on the 45. Okay, so we put both of those together. You can now see that if this bit here, the 45, wasn't there, and we could slide those in, that those two profiles are going to meet. So what we need to do, on the drop saw again, you've got a square cut here.
Yep.
So you need to just rotate the saw at 5 degrees, so we're just going to back cut again. So we're working to that edge. We'll do that inside. So that's the first part, cut. It's the same, no matter what profile you got, it's exactly the same.
Yep. To the top of the flat?
Yep.
Yep.
And we cut this bit inside by hand. So I've got one piece done.
Yep.
What I'll get you to do now, out of these next two pieces, if you can cut those exactly the same.
Yep.
So if you just follow the same procedure there, so you press it, turn it, you'll see that click into 45. Now, before you cut that, you want to make sure that this saw is actually set at 90 degrees. So just twist it that way. Yep, loop. That's good. Now, before you cut that, obviously you want to keep your hands clear of the blade, but it's important that you're probably holding it more there flat against than back where you are.
Yeah, sure.
So just remember that the saw will always end. That's good. And if you do the same with that one, just while the saw's cut or set on 45, you just want to set this back, so if you just release, every saw's different, but you release that, come down at 5 degrees, and then slide that through. Now you're only cutting to that edge.
Top of the flat,
Yep. That's really well done.
see how that works. So the bulk of the work's done at the saw.
Yep.
So you've got that angle already cut. You've done a back cut. The next bit gets done by hand.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll take these pieces back into the main room and we'll
Do the Scribe. Okay, Bob, what we've got made is got our two profiles, display, so we might do that one first. So this is called a coping saw. Like all tools, the tool does the work. So it's called a scribe, and effectively what you want to be doing is scribing, doing a feather cut along that edge. The key with the saw is don't try and take too much at the one time, just let the blade do all the work. So you use your finger as a guide to make sure that you don't split it. That's your scribe cut. So you can see we just trace that line down with the blade. Yep. Back to there. When we line those two up, you can see how that internal corners form. Yep. To the naked eye, it just looks like everything's grown in against each other. Yep. So the principle we've used there is exactly the same when it comes to a colonial. Colonial's obviously got a little bit more ins and outs. And this particular profile, you can see that it's flat at the top. Yep. So we've got one there, I'll be coming across square, because you won't be able to feather it. Side here. You can see here that internal profile marries up. Yeah. So it's all about creating that 45 first. Yeah. Doing a scribe cut across that profile there, and the two align. Yeah. And that'll look $1 million when it's painted up. Okay. So, any questions on how I went about that?
Just the corners. When you're on that one, turning the saw around, sometimes I find it gets a bit stuck.
Yep, so the key with it is don't try and bite off too much at one time. Yep. If you need to take a little bit more out on your blade, take it out of this side here where it doesn't matter. Yep. And then just bring your blade back in to the edge as you need it. Yeah, okay. So if you start on the display first. So it's just how you get yourself set up. Now, for me personally, I like to be working over the top of it. Yeah. And if I'm well balanced. Yeah. And then I've got full control because my eyes are aligning with the edge. Yeah. Okay. That's it. You just want to go really slow and let that saw do all the work. It's just a matter of getting it started. So probably when you're starting, just try and drag it up, or that's it. That's it? Yeah, like that. Yeah. A bit more. Like that. So you're actually back cutting it. That's good. Now
That's
with
what
it.
you want to do, yeah?
Yep, so with that, you can take that blade out now, and then come back through the other cut. Again, just, once you get it started there, just lightly press on it. Okay. That's good. So when you're cleaning that up,
Yeah.
you've always got to remember that you're only going to see this edge, the line that's been cut. So you flip that over and just have a look at it. That's not too bad, is it?
Looks better than I thought it would, but.
Yep. So that's probably a really good example that you only see what's
Yeah.
that edge there.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing with the saw behind that edge,
Yeah.
doesn't matter as long as you can close it over like that, you get a really good finish. Well, that's a simple profile. The colonial itself is probably a little bit more complicated, but exactly the same.
Yeah.
Procedure. So
You said you started.
I would go square across there with that. Same thing there, Bob. I'd get some weight on top of that. Because what you'll find is when you're using that saw, you just want that blade doing the work. You don't want that bouncing around. So just do this really, really small. And you don't want you probably want to slide that a bit more this way, your skirting board, because you're going to hit this saw.
Okay.
Alright, now you're talking. Just that up and down motion, let the blade do the work. So it doesn't, when you're cutting, it doesn't matter if you're only taking just a really minute amount off that skirt. And it's probably actually better if you are, because you've got a lot more control. The blades themselves, they're pretty fragile, so you just let them do their work, let them flow nice and freely. Okay, just don't get greedy with the saw, just a little bit. And the other key with that saw is, if you can keep that saw moving all the time, it won't be as clunky, and you'll find that you'll get more control over what you're trying to do. Are you trying to get that out?
Yeah. So I thought we'd finish it from that side now.
Yeah, that's actually been really good. Once you get that saw going and it's moving, that blade will do all the work. But if you try and force it, you'll get that stop-start motion. You can tear the material. That's good. All right, so if you grab the other piece, just put them on the saw horse. We'll have a look at that.
That's because I haven't angled it back enough.
Yep.
So the front of it's, I think, pretty good.
The front is really good, but you can see that. So the trick there with working that out is if you stand basically straight above that,
Yeah.
and you look down,
Yeah.
and you get the eye position there, you'll be able to see the bits that are hanging out. always, when you've got that saw, once you get that saw going, just try and always just keep it moving, even if you're only taking a real feather off. That's it. Even really, you're probably better off with really light pressure on the saw.
Yeah.
That's it. That was pretty good. Okay, so just leave it. If you leave it there, you can see if we put that in there, and then you get your eye line above it where you had your saw, you'll be able to see how well you cut from.
Yeah.
So if you look at that now
Yeah.
versus what you've done first time,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So in your position when you're on the sawhorse and you're cutting, it's going to have an impact on your finished product.
Yeah.
And of course, the more you cut,
Just getting it right the first time, so you don't have to do that.
it's all practice.
Yeah.
But the key with the saw is, it can be a bit of a trap, but the key is to always keep that saw moving. So even if it's only that, and even if it's not taking a lot off, but it's taking something, but the saw's moving, and there's not a lot of pressure on the blade,
Yeah.
and you're just lining up with the edge that you're cutting. But that, for the first time in the training session at Colonial, like, I'm pretty impressed with that. That's pretty good. That can take a while to grasp, so you've done really well there.
Yeah.
Any questions around
No.
what we've done there?
I think I just need to practice using the saw.
Yep.
I haven't used saw as much. Like, I've done the power tools, but.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the template and the checklist has come along with today's session. You know, again, it's transferable. I'd recommend that you reference it prior to undertaking that task again. You know, in real life. It looks like we're about to do some here, so but you're well on your way. That's very impressive what you've done there, so well done.
Thanks.
No worries.